Welcome, foolish mortals.
Welcome back to my cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Charlie the Vampiric Barbie, your host, and join me for another episode of Hollywood History. Ghosts represent the past, which impedes us to face the future. Wise words from Henry James and an appropriate foreword for Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak. A would-be author moves into a haunted house. Sound familiar? To set the scene, some of you may remember a very long time ago I ran a Marvel fan page. I've been an avid fan of Tom Hiddleston for a very, very long time, and I was front row opening night for this movie, and I've loved it ever since. A script was in the works in 2006 after the release of Pan's Labyrinth, a movie with a concept so distinctly Del Toro it cemented a unique look, an auteur way of storytelling. The director would come to call back on his ideas from Pan's Labyrinth both prior to and after the release of Crimson Peak. The film perfectly captured the director's imagination, tailored to fruition. It feels like a beating heart to pump all the other organs, a trace of it in every other project he chooses to pursue. Edith, Ophelia's older, bigger budgeted, wiser sister. The two films are sisters in some way. Both express beautifully the convulsion in colliding the past and the present, and telling saddening tales of the misfortunes with souls who are not meant to do so, forcing confrontation between innocent and evil, the living and the dead. Guillermo's monsters, a refreshing new iteration of cinematic bone-crackling creatures. Monsters are in Guillermo's blood. Of course, because he's a Libra, so obviously. The horror genre and his efforts within it, shining stars in his impressive catalogue, his fondness for practical effects and immersivity, as well as an exquisite attention to detail and storytelling with his love for eye protein, make him a master raconteur. And a genius writer he is, as a script for Crimson Peak was quietly sold to British executive Donna Langley at Universal Studios. Del Toro planned to direct, but the project got delayed due to a congestion of other projects. Hellboy 2, The Golden Army in 2008, and then later to help produce the Hobbit movies until 2012 alongside Peter Jackson. But whilst working on Pacific Rim in 2013, Del Toro built up a good working relationship with Thomas Tull and John Jashney from Legendary Pictures. Tull and Jashney, heroes without capes, executive producers on fan favourite Trick or Treat in 2007 prior to their involvement in Crimson Peak. So, Universal gave permission for the film to be produced over at Legendary if allowed to put up money to have stakes in the film. They did so, and principal photography began in Pinewood Studios in Toronto on February 10th, ending May 11th, 2014. A studio so large it was home to an external scale replica of the house. Full-scale interiors were also built for each of the rooms on screen respectively. External filming took place in Hamilton and Kingston, Ontario, Canada during April that same year. To help tell the tale, in-real-life best friend of Tom Hiddleston, Benedict Cumberbatch, was originally cast as Sir Thomas Sharp Baronet. However, he pulled from the project over creative differences with the film's director, but it is said that Del Toro and Cumberbatch remain amicable. So, to play Thomas's bride, Emma Stone was cast, yet dropped out of the project due to scheduling conflicts. So, Alice in Wonderland's Mia Wasikowska took her role respectively, and for the better. I couldn't imagine anyone else in her shoes. With Cushing, a respectful ode to horror icon Peter Cushing. And moreover, the moth to the butterfly, Jessica Chastain decided on the role of Lucille Sharp after being given the script by Guillermo whilst working with him in 2013 on their horror collaboration Mama. Fantastic film. You also have Supernatural's own Bobby Singer, Jim Beaver, and Charlie Hunnam as additions to the cast, in addition to Doug Jones and Javier Botet, embodying the ghosts and all other enigmas of flesh. Both starred as Guillermo's creations before, Jones most notably Pan's Labyrinth and Shape of Water, and Botet in Mama. Fun fact, Doug Jones also played the beloved Billy Butcherson in Hocus Pocus. And in regards to fleshing out their roles, Sir Thomas Sharp couldn't have been a more perfect fit for Tom Hiddleston. An avid lover of classical literature, he slipped right into the role of Victorian gentleman without fault. Sincerely a passion project on his behalf, and rather than a love for novelised classics, Jessica Chastain drew inspiration from Lucy and Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Chastain's own imagination saw Lucille as a bug, her clothes restraints, for in the end she's left bearing all only in a nightgown after a circle of violence is broken. This also says she learned to play piano for the role. And Anna Del Hall was played by... does seem like a character in its own right. Guillermo del Toro is in favour of exchanging the phrase eye candy to eye protein. In his worlds there is colour, shapes, illustrations, size, subtext, context, all to digest, to aid you in the story, and Crimson Peak, Anna Del Hall, my darling, is full of them. Of course not the only director to do this, but a significant one to venture in the gothic romance genre, only to be towed closely by the recent release of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. Despite a much bleaker aesthetic, nowhere near as delicious in details to digest, it stands as a willing competitor. So some of the film's smallest protein ingredients go unnoticed. The house is home to so many of them. Although not animated, it hosts a soul that breathes. And to quote Thomas, a house as old as this one becomes, in time, a living thing. It starts holding on to things, keeping them alive when they shouldn't be. So in order to make Anna Del Hall come alive, production manager Tom Sanders created finer details. 2 copies of selected furniture were made of almost every key piece. Seats, beds made bigger or smaller to make the character inhabiting them seem larger or modest in comparison. It implies all of that eye protein. An important side note, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula is one of the biggest cinematic inspirations for Del Toro in his creation of Crimson Peak, incredibly so that he hired Tom Sanders specifically to replicate the film's feel, Sanders putting his talents to work on both gothic masterpieces, aiding in Del Toro's vision to construct something that means to look real. Coupled with the attention to key pieces of furniture, every small detail in Anna Del Hall was made for the house, an insane notion that signifies the director's and the team's persistence to detail to truly bring his world to life. And with a gracious budget of $55 million, the director not only had the budget for exquisite sets, he had room to build an entire exterior of Anna Del Hall, a rarity in modern Hollywood, an exterior only enhanced by CGI, in addition to the rooms used on screen, all full scale, built with love and intricate detail in Pinewood Studios, Toronto. In all its deceptive grandeur, Anna Del Hall acts as a character, aiding in the tale of Edith and undertaking efforts as a protagonist in the film's revelations. From the moment audiences lay our eyes upon it, we're met with feelings of uncertainty, oozing red clay, the gut of the house, foreboding a bloody and emotional climax. It breathes and has other organs, the heart of the house, the scullery, the elevator, a transitional space between the old part of the house and the new. Anna Del Hall reflects its inhabitants, the old and the new, the past and the future, and it exhales and inhales in monstrous hubris. The picture starts bright and wide, only to close in darker and darker into the walls of Crimson Peak. Also a sweet note, Thomas and Lucille match their home in their costuming, blending into the walls in efforts to show it consumes them. Edith always stands out in bright contrast. Regal costumes for the picture were produced by Kate Hawley, a serial confidant working with Guillermo on the Hobbit movies and Pacific Rim. I could be here for hours if I divulged into every intricacy of Crimson Peak. There are countless beautiful details and homages. Guillermo decided to create on a large and opulent scale, paying homage to Kubrick's The Shining, Friedkin's The Exorcist, Hitchcock's Rebecca, and The Innocents from 1961. The Gothic romance genre was born in 1764 with the novel The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole, a key point of reference for Guillermo, and from 1764 to 1939 with Wuthering Heights to 1992 with Dracula, the genre blossomed with a staple every couple decades or so in the cinematic realm, and Crimson Peak is no exception. The movie hones in on all the genre's tropes, a visual melodrama, a few notches above reality. It explores the supernatural, revelling in the extremity of emotion, a grand backdrop and a headstrong female lead, all in love and romance, mystery and suspense. For Edith Cushing, a virginal princess who falls in love with a dark prince, leads within the restraints of location, for geography is destiny within Gothic romance. Sex, a dance or waltz so tender it can only be seen as a delicate declaration of love, even in spite of dangerous intent. And the most alluring part of the picture is no doubt the dance sequence. months of courtship in a singular scene, the camera dances with gentle fingertips, each grasp, each breath, each step. Between Edith and Thomas, it feels just like an act of love, with the passion so strong. Guillermo, with much care, conveys such gentle beginnings with layers of lust and innocence, all for the taking. And from gentle beginnings to sinful ends, Guillermo believes in vulnerability and intelligence. All his films end with such melancholy, for when the villains die we understand, for Crimson Peak is almost a tale of redemption, a tale of anguish in which ends in Edith understanding the complexity of love. And regardless of reception, the film is undeniably an ageless staple in Gothic cinema. Too many ingredients only to be tasted once. The film had its world premiere at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas on September 25th, 2015, yet released to the world a little under a month later, October 16th, 2015 in United States theatres. Crimson Peak only grossed $74.7 million on a $55 million budget. A meagre release for such an instant, majestic and timeless classic.